Welcome back to our modded Kerbal Space Program career. In the last episode, we came up with a low-tech solution for recovering our craft, because we don't even have parachutes unlocked yet. So we made like a glider, a rocket that we could fly like a glider and land on skids. And we sent that up into our first orbit and first crossing of the radiation belts. And let's see what's available today. What are we going to do next? And I'm thinking we want to start exploring the moon. See the objectives of this contract. Destination the moon, escape trajectory, so we just have to reach the moon's sphere of influence. We don't have to orbit. And then return science, which can be returned by recovery or transmit. If we're doing an unmanned probe mission, then transmit is almost definitely the way to do that. See, there's another Explore the Moon probe contract here. However, that one requires us to return home. And that's a bit more complicated than this, so we're going to just take this by itself. Let's go into the tech tree with the 96 science we unlocked with that orbit last time. And I think I want to take this node. This node has this PUG engine, which is a very efficient upper stage engine for light payloads. I don't know if we'll actually use that, but it also has this Ant engine. I love this engine. I think this is very underrated. People never talk about using this. This is great if you're doing small probes. So let's take that. And I think this is not a bad path for us to put on right now. We can spend 25 here and then 45 here. And we do have enough for that. That gets us to this antenna to transmit from further range. And there's nothing here we need for this mission, but we need to get through this node sooner or later anyway. So let's do this. Because I don't know exactly how the contract progression is going to go, but if I had to guess, I would say once we complete this moon flyby probe, we're going to get a Minmus flyby contract. So what I'm thinking is we can probably use this probe to do both of those. What I want to build is something that I want to say has like 1500 delta V in it. So let's take a little fuel tank and that Ant engine I just unlocked. How much is that? Vacuum. 1500. What a coincidence. I swear I didn't plan that. It's not going to quite work anyway because I'm going to add more parts to this and it's going to drag it down. So we unlocked with one of those nodes an unmanned experiment slot upgrade, so now we can fit 2 experiments in the probe core itself. We're going to keep one at telemetry report. For the second, we can choose between thermometer, Geiger counter, light, and might. So light and might are new experiments added by Kerbalism. Might requires atmospheric bodies. So this experiment can be performed on Kerbin, but it isn't going to do anything on Moon or Minmus. Light does not require atmosphere. It just works in space low and space high. So we'll take light, and then to the probe core itself, we'll keep that Geiger counter. We'll do a thermometer. Actually, we don't need a barometer, do we? Because we're not going anywhere with atmosphere. Any chance those 2 parts balance out that antenna? Not even close. What we might have to do is just put 2 antennas, even though that's it's overkill as far as transmission. It will help our data rate a little, but it'll balance. And balance is good. So now we're down to 800 delta V. So let's just plop a second fuel tank in there. Battery. Oh, this thing has built-in 100 EC. We don't need battery then. But we could use solar panels. If I do... If I do this... And we'll just move that Geiger counter up here. I'm just going to sink these in with the offset tool a little bit so they look a little cleaner. Let's say that's what we're taking. So I'm actually going to just slip one more small fuel tank in there just to beef us up to a good solid 1650 it looks like we're going to be at. This is going to be our Moon flyby probe. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Mun flyby 1. We use the smaller fuel tank That's 1600 delta V with a TWR 1.2. That's perfectly usable as an upper stage. Let's do some color things to try to make it look cool. And now let's get our 1.25 coupler in, and let's start with these. So if we had, how much was it, 1600 up there? We need 3400 total to get into orbit, so I need to add another 1800 minimum. So how much is this? Swivel engine. That's 2800, but how much is it at sea level? 22. TWR 1.7, we can add more because we've got plenty of thrust. Now we're at 25, 26 with TWR 1.4. I think this would do the job for us. Just in case. I'm going to put one more on. Now that's 27 and 1.27. That should be perfectly reasonable. Throw some fins for attitude control. I clipped into the ground there. Maybe we're not. I'm not sure. Still no launch clamp to keep these things from falling over. I'm going to do kind of a janky launch clamp thingy just to hold this thing upright when we launch. Because I'm a little worried about it. How big is this? So if you were to take these and then like I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to do with this. Do it like that, then you've got to launch sort of a stand. One last thing to look at. Kerbalism does have the possibility of engine failures, so let's get this to a high quality engine. That'll give us more rated burn time and more rated ignitions. Your engine can still fail before you hit these ratings. These are just like nominal, but if you have bad luck, you can fail your engine before you get there. Is raise the hard drive capacity. Now let's save. Now let's rotate to face east. And now let's go for it. SAS on. Throttle up. Launch. Drop the clamps. That was cool. They're standing up. Oh, there they fell over eventually. That was cool though. So we're flying facing east. When we hit about 80 meters per second, I'm going to start pulling the nose down. I just wait till that long so that we have good aerodynamic pressure on the fins so that we have good control. I'm going to pull the nose down to about 70 degrees. It's a little greasy feeling. We're going to hold here until we hit 4 kilometers, and at that point I'm going to click retrograde, and that should set up a gravity turn. And I'm just going to watch this TWR over here and just pull my throttle back to keep it. Usually I like to keep it between 1.8 and 2. And if we set this up well, then about the time we cross 15 kilometers, somewhere between 10 and 15 kilometers altitude, we should reach 45 degrees bearing. So we're just about there now, 15 kilometers altitude and just touching 45. We'll just keep riding this, keep watching the throttle. We're going to aim for an apoapsis of about 80 kilometers. Edge of space is 70 kilometers. We're going to go a bit above that to have a little breathing room. And 80, I'll just let it ride up to 85. Cut throttle. I had my finger on the wrong button there, but we got there. We got to 88. Okay, so still facing prograde. We're going to just go full throttle and burn out the rest of the stage. The goal here is now to build lateral velocity. Let's ditch that stage. The goal now is to build lateral velocity to bring our periapsis from negatives into positives, and then pull it up to above 70. I want to cut the throttle again because we're a little early, actually. That's why our apoaps is just raised to 90 kilometers. Engine on. We have so much more fuel, so much more delta V than we need. My goodness. Definitely over-engineered. I didn't realize we had quite that kind of margin. Because we still have... We're going to have 1200 left in this stage when we make orbit. Face prograde once more. And let's do the rest of this burn to get us into stable orbit. There we go, stable orbit. Now let's take a look at where the moon is at. Oh, right. I was trying to click it to set it as target, but we can't do that yet, can we? Because I haven't bought the Space Center upgrades to allow us. So we're going to have to fly this moon flyby with no maneuver nodes and no patched conics. That's fine. That's fine, actually. It's not that hard to get a Mun Encounter. This is an old school method from early days of KSP. You want to wait until you're at the point in your orbit where you're just lining up the moon over the edge of the planet, over the horizon, and burn prograde. And that should put you on a pretty good moon intercept. We're just going to sit out here, zoomed out, and watch our orbit grow. This would be the apoapsis growing. There would be a marker up here if we had the upgrade to show that. What is this thing? Can this not be right here? I'm sure that's from a mod, but I don't know which one. So it's not even going to show us when we have an intercept, because we don't have patched conics unlocked yet. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make this line sort of kiss this line and stop. And that should be close enough. Stop. A little more. Stop. In fact, I'm going to go a little past. Stop. Okay. And we're on the right plane. Close enough to the right plane. So let's get back in here and orient ourselves with a solar panel facing the sun. Always have to remember to do that until we have better solar panels unlocked that can track the sun. I just like to watch this exposure tab and get it close to 100. There we go. Let's time warp. And there we go. We've got a Mun Encounter. In fact, we've got a moon. That's a collision course. That's pretty good for an eyeball trajectory. I'm kind of proud of myself for that. So let's point at the radial out vector. It's one of these two blue ones. Hopefully it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. And we can burn until we're not colliding with the moon, ideally. Okay, actually, I'm thinking about this. And I want to try to get a gravity assist. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to sort of fiddle around. I don't know how to explain what I'm going to do because I'm just going to point at the different markers and burn a little bit on each of them and just see what it does to my orbit. What I want to do is get my pass to come right here and go behind the moon like that. Gravity assists are, they're real screwy. Like, I'm literally a space physicist and they screw with my head. But on a basic level for this game, if you do a flyby going behind the planet in its orbit, it will boost you into a higher orbit, which is what we want to get to Minmus. If you do it instead going in front, it will break you into a lower orbit. So we're going to try to just fiddle around with this trajectory until we get to come something like this. That's not that far off from what I wanted to do. Now we want to go radial in to close in the distance. Is that this one? Yes, it is. And that's not too low, right? We're not going to smash into a mountain on the way past. Looks okay. And, oh, we're almost out of fuel on that stage. Well, this is a perfect opportunity to lose it without creating space debris. because we can drop that stage and we can deorbit it into the moon. So you're going to die now. Nice knowing you. Switch back to our main craft. And this contract is fly by the moon, return the first science from the moon. We've already done it. World's first milestones, contract complete. So I'm going to save this. And let's get into the Space Center and see what contracts are available. Science data from space around Kerbin. I can complete that with this in-flight mission. Orbit the moon. I can complete that right now too, actually. Upgrade 150,000 space those, patched connects visible on map. We've got the money for that, no problem. What does this one buy us? For 75,000, it gives us the ability to create maneuver nodes. That's also going to be very useful. So, contract, orbit the moon. So see, now we can do planning, because we can see our patched conic. So this is going to throw us into this orbit, which takes us out past the orbit of Minmus. But we're not worried about that at the moment, because first we want to complete orbiting the moon. So I'm going to create a node right here at Periaps, and just do a retrograde burn, just enough to close that loop. That will count as orbiting the moon. It's a very eccentric orbit, but it's an orbit. Okay, so we've got a burn time of 26 seconds, so we're going to wait until the node is 13 seconds away and start the burn. I'm going to time warp a little bit just to get down there. And what we want is just to pull this in to close the loop. Just minimal orbit. There you have it. Contract complete. Orbit the moon. Let's get back to the Space Center and see what other contracts are available. Science data from space around the moon. We're doing that at this moment, so we'll take that. Let's turn back prograde now, because we don't actually want to orbit the moon. We just wanted to get into an orbit, and now we'll leave. Lovely. Let's just hold that there. I can set Minmus as target. It's going to take a couple of orbits to phase in. For now, let's rotate our solar panel, of course, to face the sun. And we're working on contract transmit or recover data from space around the moon. That's this temp scan that's running right now. So we'll have that complete any moment here. Contract complete. Let's revisit the Space Center. Yeah, nothing new on the moon has opened up that we can do with this probe. So let's start exploring Minmus. And I assume what's about to happen is we're going to do that exact same progression of events. Okay, so let's time warp to get out of the moon's sphere of influence. Now that we're back in Kerbin's sphere of influence, what is this? World's first milestone. Okay, now that we're back in Kerbin's sphere of influence, we can transmit or recover data from space around Kerbin. Did I not take that Minmus contract? Apparently I didn't. I guess we'll have to go back to the Space Center for that. But first, let's transmit some science data from space around Kerbin, which we're actually doing right now, so I don't have to do anything special for that. Just time warp until it's done. There we go. Contract complete. Start exploring Minmus. Except, seriously this time. We just passed the ascending node, but we're close to the node. Close enough that we could still do a maneuver with as much delta V as we have. So let's point descending node, or anti-normal, which I think is this marker. It's one of the two pink markers. And let's try to bring this down to, we're not going to get 0 because we're not exactly at the node, but let's see how low we can get it. Closest approach, target position. So what if we waited one orbit for phasing, and then did a maneuver on the next orbit. So what if we get to here and we just wait an extra orbit for phasing? That would be workable, because now we can go a little further out to slow down. There we go, that was an encounter. That's going to cost about 80 meters per second. We've got plenty of fuel to do that. Okay, let's do this. So we're going to time warp out to this maneuver node, this inclination change maneuver. We're going to face normal this time instead of anti-normal. And just do an 8 meter per second burn. Close enough. I forgot last time, but be sure to check. Check your solar panel exposure. Okay, now let's plan this encounter. I want to do another gravity assist if I can to an even higher orbit. I'm going to try to fling this thing just out of the system entirely, and then we can get science from the solar biome as well. 16-kilometer altitude pass. That should be safe, I think. So now we're just going to time warp to that, which is 60 days away, because it's one whole orbit out, and this is a slow orbit because we're going so high. We've got so much left in this thing. I could send this. I swear I could get this to Gilly or to Ike. I could probably get this in the Joule system, but it's not going to have the antenna range to transmit any data once it's there. So it would just be sort of for naught. That is no longer an approach. But that's fine. That'll be easy to adjust out here when we're going very slow at apoapsis. Yeah, you know what? I'll just leave it there. Once again, we've got plenty of delta V. I don't need to worry about being super efficient. But I do need to worry about my solar panel orientation. Do we still not have an encounter? We should have an encounter. Why don't we have an encounter? Let's fiddle with the node a bit. Yeah, I don't know. It should be an encounter. Did that not work the way I thought it did earlier? Maybe that's my fault. Maybe I screwed something up there. Minmus Encounter, 7 days. That's what we want. Let's drag that down because I want to get Minmus low space in addition to high space. Talking about biomes where we can get science. I'd like to do like 15 kilometers is good. Okay, let's face that node. I'm not going to wait 4 hours. It's not going to make a significant difference way out here. I'm just going to do the burn now. There we go. Now we're just going to time warp and ride this thing down to Minmus Sphere of Influence. World's first. Contract will be complete as soon as we finish. I forgot again, you know. I forgot to reorient my solar panels. Luckily it was okay. One of these days it's going to cost me a probe. Anyway, I was saying, as soon as these experiments transmit, yeah, there we go. Contract complete. Let's head back to Space Center. Orbit Minmus. Yep, it looks like it's going to be the same progression of things we did at the moon. So let's orbit Minmus. I'm not even going to make a maneuver node for that. We're just going to time warp down to the periapsis. When we come out of time warp, I'm going to turn retrograde and burn. Retrograde. Engine on. Same thing we did at the moon. We're just going to pull this around until we get a loop and have a high eccentric orbit. Shazam! Oh, my finger was on the wrong button again. Not the first time that's happened. Okay. Contract complete. Space Center. I swear I could land this thing on Minmus. That's probably more valuable than sending it into interplanetary space, right? I'm going to do it. If I send it interplanetary, it's just going to transmit initial science from Kerbal, from the sun, but it's not going to be able to do anything else because it doesn't have the antenna range. So I'll ultimately get more science and more funds out of it by landing it on Minmus. I'm just time warping around. Oh, I missed it. I was about to say, I'm just time warping around until I hit PE again. I should use the thing instead of trying to do it manually. Then I wouldn't miss it. We're going to turn retrograde when we get there and burn to pull the orbit down. Kind of circularize here at 15 kilometers. Engine on. Throttle down so I don't overshoot. There we go. We need to pick a landing spot. Let's time warp around to the daylight side, just so it's daylight. Flats. Let's go to the flats. Everyone likes the flats. Retrograde. Burn. Let's turn this thing on, and it gives me a marker for projected landing. It's not exactly where the line goes through because the planet is going to rotate in the time it takes us to fly down there. Let's land. You know what? I should have stopped it up there. Let's land there. Let's time warp our way down. What is our TWR? 8.5 on Minmus, even with this tiny engine. So we've got plenty. Now I think I have a mod, and I'm not sure about this, but I think I have a mod that'll give me a suicide burn countdown down here. Engineer also gives you one right here. It tells me I should start in 138. For some reason it changes while I'm time warping. It's not entirely helpful. Suborbital spaceflight worlds first. We have no... That's a thought, actually. I didn't think about that. We have no connection here. So I can't throttle the engine. All I can do is full throttle or off. I think those are still available without connection, but I can't do partial throttle. And I can't do manual control. I can only do SAS hold. Didn't think about that. But yeah, that is an issue. I should have landed on the side facing Kerbin, which would have been the dark side, and we wouldn't have that problem. But it's okay. We've already got so much out of this probe that can't complain about anything. Impact in 42 seconds. Suicide burn estimated 36 seconds. Let's point retrograde. Make sure you're set to surface here. You can click this for orbit surface or target if you have one set. You want to be set in surface mode for landing. Fire engine. We are actually, because I was talking, I overshot it a little bit, but these usually have a bit of wiggle room in them. It actually seems to work out if you put it at like 2/3 throttle, but I can't do that right now because I don't have probe control. Engine off. I would throttle down, but can't do that without data connection, probe connection. So instead I'm going to have to do it in pulses, full throttle pulses, and hope we can make that land safely. Yeah, coming in pretty quick. There we go. That's what we want to see. It's like perfect. It's like perfect. Look at that. Look at that. To be honest, I would kind of like you to fall over and not stand up, because then the solar panels would be facing upwards. Can you fall over? It'd be nice if you fell over. It's slowly falling, I think. Let's... Physical time warp will help it. I'm just going to stand like that, huh? Close enough. 78%. Contract complete. Land on Minmus. And we will get science out of here once... Is Minmus tidally locked? I don't actually know now that I think about it. Assuming Minmus isn't tidally locked to Kerbin, we will get science out of here once it rotates. Yeah, not tidally locked. So let's just time warp this thing around until we have data connection again. And get what science we can out of it. There you go. It's all transmitted. That's, I guess we're done with this probe. You can just sit here sort of doing a breakdance probe on Minmus for eternity. Let's go to the Space Center. Okay, we're up to 1.02 million spaceos and 190 science. Before that mission we had like, what was it, 300 or 400k? Might have been 400k. So we made a profit of over 600k, and that's not even counting the 200k we spent upgrading Mission Control and Tracking Station. Plus we made a profit of 100 science and the nodes we unlocked. That was a pretty successful mission, I'd say. Why don't we call in an episode here, and next time we'll possibly take a look at manned missions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.